Hey guys, it's Sam, and these are some of the series that I want to read. These are series that I haven't started, that maybe I own some of the books too, a lot of them I do, but that are just like tingling at my senses like, I want to start these. So I would say these are kind of in the high priority for 2025, but I actually have other series goals. Like, I am on the complete the series in 2025 kind of a kick, in the way that I was like complete my TBR the last couple of years. So yeah, I will talk more about goals coming up in January. You know, January is my heavy posting month. But yeah, let's talk about some of the series that are highest on my list of things to read series-wise, and you let me know if any of these are things that you're like, you need to get to these immediately. First is the Empire of the Wolf trilogy by Richard Swan. This is a adult fantasy trilogy that I believe is now finished. I think all 3 books are out, and I don't know a lot about this, but I will tell you, Tori is the reason that I want to read this so much. She talks about this book series a lot and says it's really good. So there's a few other people that have talked about it, but like she's the one that comes top of mind, and that's when I first put this first book on my TBR, was when she was talking about it. My understanding of this is that it's a like grimdark murder mystery, and it follows a character like, it says no man is above the law, and the main character is the Emperor's justice, detective, judge, and executioner all in one. But no man is above the law. So yeah, I've heard it's really good. I've heard the characters in here are super interesting, and this sounds like a like kind of political machinations fantasy, and that is my shit. I love it. Either give me like super high fantasy, crazy things happening, or give me sort of like low magic political intrigue. And that's what I think this is, just from the little bits that I've heard about it. And also, like, I don't actually mind not knowing a ton about a series before going into it. So this sounds really cool. I like a little grimdark here and there, so excited to get to this. And this is a completed series, like I said, I think. So I could potentially like fly through this once I get into it. Then we have the Bone Witch series by Rin Chapeko. This is a YA fantasy series that's been out for so long, and I've had on my TBR for so long. I don't have the physical books, which is why I probably haven't gotten to it, but I love these covers. And it's about a girl who is a bone witch, and bone witches, like sort of like necromancy magic, right, are just kind of seen as dangerous and stuff. I believe she like brings her brother back from the dead accidentally when she's younger or something, and then she's sort of like ostracized. But I've heard this is really good. I have read no Rin Chapeko, and people talk very highly of their writing, so I want to get to this. It's bone magic. Like every October too, I plan to read this, and then I always forget that by the end of the year, so much is happening, and so like, one, I'm really busy, and two, it like I can't just devote my time to spooky books. Not that like these are spooky, but I like to read sort of like thematic books around like Halloween season, and I never get to as much as I want to because I'm like, oh my goals, I only have a few months left. So yeah, one of these days I will get to this series. But I've heard really good things about it. So then we have the Kingdom Trilogy by Bethany Jacobs. This is a sci-fi series, I believe also completed. I think almost all of these are complete. No, only one isn't, I think. But this is an adult sci-fi space opera type story from my understanding, and it's following a bunch of characters who are kind of chasing each other around the galaxy a little bit. So we have like a main character who's a thief. They figured something out that could kind of like topple the kingdom, which is like the political structure. So they're trying to find this item. Then 2 other people are also sent. I believe they're like bounty hunters or something. Oh, they're brutal clerics. So I'm like, oh, so we have sci-fi, fantasy, religious components happening with the cleric. And then tracking all 3 of these people is this entity known as the Six, which they're like the synopsis says is part of their like shared past. And I'm like, what? So there's just like, there's some sort of like questy things, you know, heisty elements. It kind of sounds like, not necessarily like a full heist, but like that kind of feel. And then sort of having to like betray, manipulate, outwit each other kind of thing. Sounds really interesting. I've heard really good things about this series, and yeah, I love a good sci-fi series. This I also always mix up with the next series I'm going to talk about, which is on my list, and that is The Blighted Stars by Megan O'Keefe. This is another sci-fi sort of space opera series. This one has a little bit more like romance to it though, which I do love. So this is following 2 characters who are basically mortal enemies. One is she's sort of like a revolutionary. Basically, humanity is running out of planets that they can like habitate. Like things keep happening to planets and they're like running out of time. She thinks it's attached to this sort of like colonizing business family. Like it's sort of this family that colonizes and explores different planets and stuff, and she thinks it's somehow tied to them. And then the other main character is part of that family, like he's sort of part of this like business tycoon family, but he's not in agreement with the way that his family does stuff. But his dad sends him to monitor this newest expedition on this planet. So she poses, or like gets a job basically as his bodyguard. So we have like a bodyguards romance situation. And then they end up sort of like teaming up and also like, I'm sure, making eyes at each other to be like, something is happening and what is happening and whatever. So I've heard really great things about both of these series, and I feel like the covers are similar enough that I get thrown off about which series people are talking about. But both of these got like pretty popular in the last couple of years, so I'm looking forward to both of them for different reasons. But I love a good political machinations-y space opera sci-fi. Those are like my favorite. And I've been reading more sci-fi lately, even though I know I love it. Last year, specifically, like 2024, I read a lot more of it. So looking forward to this series as well. Then I want to read the Gale Song trilogy by Shauna Lawless. The first book is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. And this is a series that intertwines Irish mythology. This is an Irish author with like real history. Give me some Irish mythology all the time. So yeah, that's kind of all I need to know, because it's sort of, again, in the same vein as some of these like, you know, Circe, Witch's Heart, Genevieve Gornichek kind of books, I think. Except for it's a series that's taking place during sort of like Viking Age, or like the end of Viking Age Irish history, and is pulling in, again, Irish mythology and the ways that that interacts with like actual history. So this is going to be right up my alley. Then we have The Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig. And this is a YA fantasy duology that sounds like kind of dark. Like it's like a dark gothic fantasy with some like romance and stuff. I don't think this completely falls into romantasy. I mean, it's just like YA, and a lot of YA would fall in romantasy if it was an adult book. But we have a main character who has what she basically calls like a monster in her head. She calls them nightmares, like some ancient like thing in her head. And there's like a dark magic infecting her town, or like the, you know, nation she's a part of or whatever. And so she eventually has to team up with this like highwayman that she runs into, but he's also connected to like royalty, and he committed treason. Like there's just a lot of like dark elements, and I'm sure they're gonna fall in love. And maybe Nightmare is also like, there might be a love triangle. I wouldn't be surprised if Nightmare was like, I don't know, like a demon something that was like hot and whatever. So yeah, I've heard really good things about this series. People really like it. I think one of the things that they have to do also is tied to some like sort of tarot card-y type ththing. Like they have to hunt down these like magical cards, and they sound like tarot cards to me. So that's part of like curing the magic. And so I wouldn't be surprised also if when they talk about like magic corrupting a thing, it's usually magic corrupting a forest. I don't know. I feel like that could be true. So I feel like this is going to have a lot of elements that I would like. And I've been having fun with YA duologies lately. So I don't read a ton of them, but the ones I've been reading have been like highly praised by people, and so far so good. The Hierarchy series by James Islington, the first book being The Will of the Many. I've heard so many people talking about this series. My understanding of it is that it's like Roman-inspired fantasy. So it takes place at an academy, which I don't always love. That can kind of go either way. If there's like a magical competition, not super into that. Like, and sometimes that happens in these academy settings. And the whole thing is, after you go to this academy, apparently you like have to cede your will. That's why it's called The Will of the Many, to like the higher ups, like the power and stuff, people in power. I don't quite understand how any of that works, but people are just like, hey, I can't describe this series, but it's really cool. And so I can kind of see that just from the synopsis, how you're like, what is this even? But basically this person is sort of like infiltrating, our main character sort of infiltrating this academy to figure out like a murder. I think their family was murdered when they were kids, like things that could kind of tear apart this republic, blah, blah, blah. So it has sort of like a Red Rising-y type vibe, which people have talked about before, but again, more of this like fantasy. And I've heard really good things about James Islington's like other books and stuff. So I'm intrigued about this. A lot of people have been talking about it. So we'll see. Oh, and finally, we have Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And this is another adult sci-fi space opera series. And in this, Earth is dying, but apparently we had previously like terraformed a new planet, and so people are going to try to like find this new planet that is already terraformed and ready for people to live on. But when they get there, it's not just like pristine and unoccupied, it is already occupied by somebody. And I think this is the series, Adrian Tchaikovsky's written a lot of stuff, but I'm pretty sure this is a series that has like spider aliens. So I think they get there and they're like, there are fucking giant spiders on this planet. So then they're kind of having to figure out like, okay, like who has this planet? Like how are we going to sort of exist together? And I've heard really good things about this series. So I was hoping to start this year, and I mean, I'm filming this pretty far in advance, but I don't think I'm going to get to it. I have other things I have to wrap up before the end of the year, but I'm looking forward to this because I've really enjoyed the little bit of stuff that Adrian Tchaikovsky has written that I've already read, but mostly like novellas and stuff. So excited to get into his more chunky work. So yeah, that is it for series that have piqued my interest the most that I haven't already started. There's a lot of series that I have commitments to already, but these are the ones that are at the top of my list for unstarted series. So comment below, let me know if any of these are like perfect for me and you're like, Sam, you have to read these, because you guys are pretty good about predicting what I will like. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.